So welcome to the Let's Talk Business Coaching. This is number 16, I think, in the series now. So again, quite a stack of videos in the library. And I thought about this. This came to me. This subject of this emotion and logic came to me purely from a coaching conversation I was having. I think it was towards the end of last week, and it struck me that as a business coach, and I think for a lot of all of us on the call, we've come to coaching from another career where it maybe it's more logic-based than emotion-based to a degree. But I was talking to this client, and he's an accountant as well, and we're having this conversation about logic, and all of a sudden it had to flip into purpose and passion and reasons and why and emotional constructs. And it struck me that maybe as a coach, I don't do enough of the emotional constructs. In logic's easy, budgets, forecasts, templates, and business stuff is easy. It's the emotional side that all trips me up, maybe for all of us as well. In my sort of experience as well, there are three aspects to coaching as I was taught. There's the transactional coaching, which is the tools and templates and strategies. There's the accountability, have you done it, will you get on with it, and the motivation side. And the third aspect was this transformational, so the mindset and attitudes and goals and that type of thing. And the split rotates between different clients as we worked with them. But I just thought it'd be interesting to explore this transactional versus transformational and the relationship between the two. So Gareth, well, you come from on a military background, not a lot of room for emotion, I guess, for certain aspects in your experience. But how do you translate that into coaching? Are you more logical, transactional, or emotional, transformational, or is it just a blend of both for you?
I think it's a blend, but it's got to come back to emotional. I think I just think nothing ever happens for logical reasons, which sounds weird, but it's always an emotional reason why change. That's where change happens, right? When emotion gets hit. And I don't know if I got time for a quick story, but
absolutely,
very, very early in my coaching days, I was a performance mindset coach for sports teams, and I went away with a mixed martial arts team. And if you imagine, these were quite young boys, so they were very mischievous. And one day some boys came in from their room into the training center with more of a mischievous grin than we would have liked. Yeah. They always had a mischievous grin, but it was just more of a mischievous grin. And they said, Steve isn't, we'll call him Steve. Steve isn't going to fight. And we said, well, what do you mean he's not going to fight? No, he's in his room now. He's not going to fight. And I don't know if anybody on the call has ever been away as a performance coach or a mindset coach, but generally you've got nothing to do until everything goes wrong. And then it's kind of like everybody turned and looked at me in a kind of you're up.
Yes, over to you. Sort this out.
Yeah. So I went to this guy's room, and it was everything a teenage boy's room is. There was just pizza everywhere. It was just an absolute pigsty. There were beds overturned. It was just it was like a war zone. It was just pizza on the floor. It was horrible. So I knew I had to get him out of the room just for my sanity more than anything. Yeah. But we were doing some lap. We were walking around the sports field, which was next to the training facility, and I was, asking all the reasons why he doesn't want to fight. And what his overriding reason was, well, if I get hit and my nose gets broken, I won't look good, and that means I won't get a pro contract and I won't get sponsorship and all that kind of stuff. I was kind of like, well, you're a boxer. You kind of have to get hit at some point. It's kind of part of the deal, right? Anyway, we were walking around, and I was trying to explore the options. Why is this? Where does this come from? We walked around for about half an hour, and then he got a call from his mum on his phone, and he put it on speakerphone, and all his mum said was like, you've come a really long way, and we're really proud of you, and we love you so much. We're just so proud of you. It's so great to see you doing something with your life. And anyway, that's pretty much all she said. And he came off the phone. And he said, I'm fighting, aren't I? And I was like, yeah, you kind of have to fight after that. Yeah. And there was, it was a purely emotional response
Yeah.
that his mum had that I couldn't have.
Sure.
That triggered a complete change in mindsets with this individual. And that's I go back to, that's where change happens, is when emotion gets hit. And especially as coaches, coaching is an emotional sale. It's
Absolutely.
not a logical sale at all.
Yeah.
It is completely emotional.
No,
And
I think the thing is, because people don't buy coaching logically. Logically, you don't need a coach, do
yeah,
you?
nobody wants a coach. Even
No, of course
athletes
not.
don't want a coach. Why
No.
would you want a coach? They make you work harder, right?
Yeah, just
Like
irritating.
nobody wakes up and says, "Oh, well, much to my surprise when I became a business coach, but nobody wakes up and says, "Oh, I really need a business coach today."
Yeah.
I wish they did, but they don't.
No.
So so you have to get that emotion.
Yeah.
And I mean, the reason why I said it's a blend is because it does, there has to be some logic in it, right? I think there has to be some numbers, return on investment, that kind of stuff. But ultimately, it's a massive emotional sale.
Yes.
And I think you start as you mean to go on with coaching. You have to find the reason why around every, otherwise the goal isn't big enough, I don't think.
Yes. Yeah.
When somebody's head, the goal isn't big enough. I know if I'm not reaching emotion in a coaching session, they're probably not going to do the actions that we agree, because they're not really invested in it. They might be invested financially in it, but they're not emotionally invested in it. So you can tell if somebody's going to do the work or not, I think, by how.
Any tips for sort of finding the emotion in your experience? What sort of, is it a questioning path, a technique? Is it, what sort of things do you do to identify, find, or what's the real emotion, the underlying emotion?
Yeah, I think ultimately what I try and do every time is play dumb and dig deep.
Yeah.
So
asking, there could be a slide on that, couldn't there, somewhere?
Yeah, I think there's a flip chart on it, I think. But I think it's ultimately that there is that funnel, isn't there, which is what you've just triggered in my head, actually, the questioning funnel. And you have to go down and dig deep, and playing dumb is my way of doing that. I know exactly what they're talking about, but I go, what does that mean? And I think there's three questions I like to use. I go, okay, so why do we want to do this? Okay, but that's not, sorry, so there's four questions. So we get to think, why do you want to do this? And then I go, what does that mean to you? Meaning what? Yeah. And then meaning with an inflection. So layers, it's what does that mean to you? Meaning what? Meaning. Okay. And I think once you get to the third meaning, you get to the real crux, the real reason. Nobody ever tells you the real reason the first time. So that's my technique for doing that, or one of my techniques for doing that.
But I think I've always found that there's always an emotional aspect, not an aspect, a big emotional aspect. Whether we actually find it or identify it or not is slightly secondary. But even in the business owner coaching, executive coaching, it doesn't really matter what it is. It's all about people. I had a client in the UK that was with me for about, I'm going to say 12 months. It's a while ago now, it must be 15, 16 years ago. And he ran a bar. It was a pub bar, little restaurant place. And his goal was to make £100,000 more profit in the business. That was it. Over 12 months, £100,000 more profit. Okay, great. Off he went. He did all the right things. He knew what he was doing. Great guy, made extra money, all this sort of thing. And then one day he just disappeared on me. Literally, the place was boarded up. The business was shut. He disappeared, wouldn't contact me, and just off he went. And it was about 6 months later when I got a phone call from him out of the blue, and he said, "I'm back." I thought, great. Where did you go? He said, "Well, come on, let's meet up for a coffee, and I'll explain." And it turns out that his daughter, who I'm going to say was 5 years old, had something not wrong with, but a disability in her spine, and she had to have an operation that could only be done in America because it was not on the NHS, whatever it was. But it had to be done before her, I'm going to say, her 7th birthday, because after the age of 7, apparently the spine tends to set, or you can't operate as easy or something like that. So £100,000 was to pay for this operation over in the US. And I didn't know that. And I'd done my digging around, like you say, trying to find out the reason, the purpose, and the passion. Never really got there. He'd made the 100,000. Then he told me afterwards. And I said to him, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you share that with me when we started? And it was interesting what he said. He said, I didn't want you to have that responsibility. And I thought,
wow.
crikey, that was a real interesting take on his purpose and his driver, that he didn't want me to have the responsibility. He knew it was his.
Yeah.
He said, all I wanted you to do, he said, was open the door for me. That was your job. Keep me up there, ideas, keep me going. And I said, I'll do all the work, but I didn't want you to have the responsibility. So I guess there's almost like a danger, if I don't know how far we go with it from a coaching perspective, but if we know what the real driver is for some of these things, do we share responsibility, which from a coach perspective is not the idea. It's just an interesting line to draw, perhaps, but it taught me a lesson as well to perhaps dig a bit further, but also maybe not dig all the way through on some of these things.
Yeah, I think once we get more emotionally involved than the business owner, it's time to walk away from the relationship. I think is my kind of rule.
Yeah.
If I want the business to succeed more than they do,
yes, that's right.
It's time to go, I think. And I think it's really, I mean, part of our job is to remove interference, right? So it's the coaching formula is performance equals potential minus interference, right? So if we're removing that interference, I think we need to keep asking the questions. Otherwise, if you were to, I don't think you really affect change. If you say to someone, so how, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to take this action? And they go, well, a 6, that's, there's 4 points worth of interference there that we need to get rid of. And that's all about digging deep and hitting that emotion, I think.
But I think you can also tell, I think, people, their language, the words that they use. And I had a client this afternoon, doesn't matter who it is, and I said to them, they were making this agreement, and he said, he's supposed to, it's a logic thing, he's going to send the budget and the forecast over to me, all this sort of thing, which is all very good. And he said, I might try and get it over to you by Thursday. And it's like, might and try. And I said, the chances of that happening are like 0, because you might not even try to do anything else. So we had to check. But I find it, but challenging people on those sort of things, their language and their behaviors, it sort of induces an emotional response where they give that level of commitment and more certainty to move forward, which I guess is part of our job as from an accountability perspective.
Yeah, I agree. And I also challenge that language. And the language I also challenge as well is, if somebody's talking about their team, I see this really with high D people. So on the disc profile, high D people. When they're talking about their team, every good thing, they'll say, yeah, I did that, I did that, I did that. Every bad thing, they'll say we.
Yes.
Right? And when they say we, what they mean is I. Right? Because otherwise they're not taking responsibility for it. So
it is, yes. But this also happens when the market is good, the sales are up because they're rock stars. I am a genius. When the market is tough, of course, it's the clients, the customers, it's COVID, it's a holiday, it's August, it's all external. It's all external stuff. And if you're not very careful,
you can't do anything in August. No,
everybody's on holiday in August. The place is dead. Luxembourg is dead. It's not, but anyway, you know what you mean. It's the same sort of thing applies. And do you find the emotional sort of relationship construct changes over time with the clients? Do they get more open and honest with you about their emotional framework as you get to know them better?
I think I'm not sure if they get more open and honest, but I think they understand the question I'm about to ask them next. So I'll often get, I'm going to say this, and you're going to say, how do we make that more positive? And then you're going to ask me out of 10, and I'm going to say about an 8, and you're going to say, how do we turn that into a 10? And then it's
just give you a 10 to start with. It's okay, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think that's a good thing, right? I think if they're thinking like that, I've done my job, and really I'm there truly as a coach.
Absolutely.
In the truest sense of the word, right? And sometimes, when that happens, it's just a little bit of extra challenge that they might need, or a good practical steer in the right direction or something like that. But I like it when that happens.
No, they preempt, they talk themselves in and out of it, which means that I had a conversation yesterday, because I have, as you know, I have the baseball bat as my motivational tool, and it very rarely gets brought out, of course. But it always sits over there on the side, so I can just grab it if I need to. And I had a conversation yesterday with this lady. She said, "Hi, how you doing? Welcome. How was the weekend? Blah blah blah." And she said, "Have you got your baseball bat to hand?" I went, "Well, yeah, it's over there." She says, "Because you're going to need it in a minute." Because, and she went through all the things she hadn't done. Then she gave the justification for it. Then she gave the reasons what she was going to put it right. And she just talked for about 15 minutes. And then she breathed and said, "Is that okay?" I went, "Yeah, sounds great. Right,
Yeah.
great. Off you go, sort that out." But she talked to you, she knew she hadn't done something. She knew why and how to put it right. And I didn't say a word. I didn't even touch the bat. And it's that sort of, in a fun way, that I think that's where it's used. This accountability is built in. And so I think we sit on the shoulder of our clients all the time, whether we're on the Zoom call or face to face, it doesn't matter. We're with them in spirit all the time. They're thinking of us in terms of what they're doing, how they're behaving, how they're performing, and then they talk sort of in and out of things as they go along.
I want them to use all the phrases I use, right, with their team, and when I know it's working is when their team are using all the phrases that I come out with as stock phrases. I think that's a really good, and then I know that the coaching is working. But you're right. I had a first initial session a couple of months ago now with somebody, and they said, all I said was, "Hi, how are you?" And they talked for the next 45 minutes, and I said, "So what do you want from me?" I hadn't even got to the "so what do you want to get out of the session" type question.
Yeah.
And they said, "Well, I just need to know that I'm not being an idiot." And I was like,
"Oh, there you go.
You're not being an idiot." And they were, "Well, really, thanks. I really enjoyed that. Thanks very much. Same time next week." I'm like, yeah, all right.
But don't you find sometimes the sort of value is in the currency of the client, not the currency of the coach? Because we want to do elegant conversations and exploring possibilities and mindset and all this sort of thing, but all they want is somebody to talk to you for 10 minutes, and then they feel better enough, they go and do amazing things.
Yeah, and I had a huge problem with this as a new coach, which
of course
am I really providing value here to someone?
Yeah.
But it's not about, because we could do all the jazzy things of putting business plans and all this kind of, and cash flow forecast and all this stuff. Sometimes it's not required. Sometimes they just want a chat, right? And I often go back to what do people buy from us? A lot of the time they buy space.
Yes.
Right. And they buy space to be with their own thoughts. And I think that's a really valuable thing. But you're absolutely right. It takes a long time to get over the fact of, am I providing them value? The question is, are they getting value out of it? If they are getting value out of it, doesn't matter what I think.
I think value is received, not delivered, isn't it? I mean, this perception of value in the relationship. But I have had a number of clients. It's a variety, as you know. But one particular guy struck me. He was with us for a long time, and we're in the UK. And the conversations would be, literally 3 or 4 minutes. We booked in for an hour consultation coaching session every week, and he would just come on the call or on the Zoom, whatever it was Skype back then, and it would just be a case of, "Hi, well, I've done this week, I've done that, that's really pissed me off, I'm happy about this, I'm doing this, here's my plan, I can do this and this, I'll see you next week." And that was it. And I went, that'll be great. Off you go. No, I have no idea how that works. But he did really well, got great results. He loved the coaching, came to all the workshops, said nice things, gave me referrals and testimonials. But I couldn't get the conversation to go. I think my record was like 8 minutes. And it was like, crikey. And I was getting really concerned about this, because it was like, it can't be, because I know none of us are cheap. As an hourly rate, if we conceptualize it as an hourly rate, it's sort of, whatever, not cheap, but as a minute rate, it was like, wow, my gosh, this is really, this is really up there. And but he was fine. He was with us for about last 5 or 6 years. He sold the business and retired and moved on, this sort of thing, which is great. But I think it was like 8 minutes for the record. But again, emotionally, he just needed, I think, just somebody to go, "I'm doing this, I've done that, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm good, I'm bad, see you next week." And for him, that was enough. Just that, having somebody in the ether, I guess, which is the perfect client, let's be honest. It's great. But they're different things for different people, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got, just like you, I got really uptight about it, I think going back a sec to, am I providing value?
Yeah.
And I think the blue touch paper for that is, are they coming back next week?
Yes.
I think,
yes.
Like,
yeah.
I think if they keep coming back, I'm providing value.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I
You know,
think
and
longevity is the key determinant
and
a coach.
rightly or wrongly, and I know certainly some coaches kind of opinion of this is, I don't really have a coaching agreement with, I don't fix people into a number of weeks or months or whatever, because I think if if value is there, they're going to stay with me, because why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
If as soon as value stops being seen, then they're going to leave me.
We evaporate.
But I think that's true whether you have an agreement or not. So
yes.
I actually don't get my clients to sign an agreement.
No,
whatever maybe we can have another debate about that, but
yeah, no, but I agree with you. I think, and this goes back, back in the day of we had lots of unfortunate conversations about that sort of thing, about having a locked in with an agreement and a structure and all this sort of thing, and notice periods and all this sort of, which is like, crikey, really. And they never really work. You never enforce them. So I don't, because I think it is that emotional engagement. If people see value and they're getting value, they get moving forwards, and then we stay as part of the gang, which is great. If we don't, for whatever reason, then the relationship comes to an end. But no, and before we go open it up to everybody on the call, just an interesting quick, because I was asked this question as well: how do you sort of manage your own emotions? Because I think one of the things for us as coaches is to be the consistent frame of reference for our clients. We can't be happy or sad or depressed or whatever it is. We've got to be the coach all the time, and rightly so. So if you have a bad day, you kick the dog, that sort of thing in the morning. How do you manage and control your emotional state to be the best coach for your clients as well?
Yeah, really hard. What I find more difficult actually is having a full day of clients and giving my 5 o'clock client the same as I did my 8 o'clock client. I think that's really difficult, but I'm really naturally very good at compartmentalizing my life. So genuinely, and I'm not sure if it's a natural trait or something that I've learned, but I close the door and I leave it out. I leave everything out of the room. And I'm very, very good at doing that. Probably too good in some aspects of my life, but I compartmentalize everything. I think having the same energy at 4 o'clock than at 9 o'clock is a harder task for me. And fitness helps with that. Taking some time to make sure I have a break and I keep hydrated and all that, kind of make sure I walk around in fresh air. I have time blocks in my diary in between clients, so that I know that in between clients I'm walking outside in fresh air and all that kind of stuff. Or I just make sure I'm doing all those good things, eating properly, drinking properly, that kind of thing. That's kind of how I manage it, but it is it is really difficult for me, I think.
It is an energy thing. It's tricky because I think we have to be able to do that. It's funny, I have a client in the UK. We're doing a workshop series for 2 of their teams. So we do a 2-hour session in the morning for one team and a 2-hour session in the afternoon. The one's early morning, one's not late, but mid to late afternoon. And you're absolutely right, because the energy on the first starts at sort of 9 o'clock in the morning, has got to be the same level of energy as it is in the afternoon when you finish at 7 o'clock in the evening. And it's like, wow, you've got to keep the caffeine going, that sort of thing. I think I got away with it. It's okay. But again, for me, I sort of, like you can compartmentalize. I go into coach mode. It's when I sit here and I'm in the office, I'm surrounded, I can turn it on and go into coach mode. It's not me. It is me, but it's me as the coach, not me as husband or dad or son or anything like that. And I know if that coach version of me turns up, and is slightly synthetic, I think, slightly synthetic, but it's going to be okay. Now with most clients, they get to know, they can sort of peel behind the layer and they see the real person as well. But on average, it's sometimes you've got to just go into, if in doubt, go into coach mode and away you go. Because I think the consistency is an expectation for us.
Yeah.
Nobody wants a miserable coach, a depressed, an angry coach, or anything like that. Regardless of what's happened, we've got to keep our emotions quite stationary and level. Otherwise, the clients get disturbed by it, I think, as well. So
Yeah, I think we've got to respond really well to the emotions of the client. As
yeah,
you know, if they're down, we need to be up even
yes,
more so, just to bring them up a bit more. If they're going crazy, we need to kind of temper it a little bit. If
yeah,
they're pessimistic, we need to be optimistic. If I think we really need to balance the client.
yeah.
I think that's what they look for as well.
Yeah,
Probably
absolutely. Yeah.
subconsciously.
It's like a sounding board. Give me the pick the bones out of this. Yes,
Yeah.
that's a good point. A good point.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. So, Gareth, thank you. So, if we open it up, anybody, Claudia, Marie, Kev, any thoughts, observations around the emotional construct, if that's the right term for coaching in your experience and learnings?
Yeah, I jotted down a few things.
Yeah, Kev, go, please. Yeah.
First thing is if you're coming out of a coaching session emotional,
yeah,
and you've been focusing on you, not on them.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you focus on them and helping them, then you don't get involved in it. It's that parent adult child thing, and you've got to be the adult in those conversations.
Yeah, great point. Yeah.
The other thing is that I think the logic is in the now.
Mm-hmm.
You start talking about the plan and how you're going to fix this challenge, and the emotion is either in the past or in the future. So if you want to put them into a positive emotion, then get them into the future. If you put them in tend to put them in the back there, they're normally getting depressed about it. So get them into the future.
Mm-hmm.
Can I share the screen a second?
Yeah, of course you can. One sec. Let's make you.
This is just something I did the other week.
Guys, it's getting serious, isn't it? Sharing the screen.
Which might be useful.
There we go. You should be able to.
Okay, so this is something I was working on.
You are being recorded, remember? So
yeah, that's okay. So I'm going to 1 second. Oh, there's the ice cream man. So I don't know if you can see this. Gareth will know this line of choice thing. But on the left-hand side there is emotions that people go through.
Yeah.
And of course, when we're in emotion, we sort of vibrate. And at the bottom of the scale, you can see dead. There's not much emotion going on there. But when people are in fear, emotion, because you've got fear and things like that, and worry and anger, resentment and ego, they're all low vibration states. Our job as a coach is when we're in those states, we can't fix anything. We can't reach. We can't tap into our creativity, our enthusiastic self. And our job as a coach is to get them up this scale.
Mm-hmm.
And because when they're in this scale here, they'll find answers to their problems.
Mm-hmm.
If that sounds
that's a great point. Yeah, great point.
There's a lot more to that slide than I'm showing you here. That's the beginning of it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I think I'm definitely stealing it.
Well, I'll send it over to you.
Yeah, please. So if you send it, put it into the group if you like. If you're happy to put it into a group chat or something, then be great. So wait, is this one of your constructions?
This is one of my constructions. Yeah, I'm still constructing it at the moment because in its classic form, we know that's BED, below the line, but actually there's a lot more to it than that.
Yes,
there's laying low and rising up, and there's reactive and proactive and things like that go above the line, and so.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's why the Labradors turned up now to say hello as well to me. Look, that's
yeah.
Great. No, absolutely, great idea. And yeah, if you're happy to share it, that would be great. I think that would be much appreciated. Copyright Momentum and Kevin and Sue, of course, but they are.
Right. Okay. So how do I stop this share now?
I don't know.
There you go. Done it. Yeah. So and another thing is sometimes to get me out of emotion is to put them into the future. How will you reward yourself?
Yeah.
When you hit this goal, and it can be a small reward. What difference will that make? What impacts it going to have on you, and all that type of stuff? They're all emotional types of things.
I found that sort of forward framing, and you're absolutely right, is to ask them who they're going to tell who they're going to share the win with, who they're going to tell, who they're going to phone, who they're going to take on the journey with them. And that's always been quite surprising because it's not always their business partner or their husband or their wife, that sort of thing, whatever. It could be their dad or their mom or their sister or somebody, a family person they want to go and prove they've done something to, or prove they've done that. And that's very, very, very emotional driven as well. So yeah,
I think I just to extend those questions slightly, Kev. So what does it mean to you? I think I also go, so what would it mean to your family?
Yeah.
Right. And especially if I'm in a sales situation and they've told me their children's name, I'll use their children's names. Right. So you getting home at 5 o'clock, what's that gonna mean to Lucy? Right. And almost 100% of the time, I would say there's a little pause before they answer, and I'm like, got it. Like, I know when there's a little catch of the breath, I'm like, I'm there, because that is a physiological response to an emotional question.
Yeah, because silence is very powerful as well, isn't it? As words,
Yeah,
as a sort of a signal or as a thought process.
yeah.
I'm just looking on
yeah.
my screen over here. I'm not playing solitaire or anything, but there is a fabulous book. I'm sure you come across it. The book by Alan Pease, Questions of the Answers.
Oh yeah, I've been listening to it this week.
Oh, there you go. And
Yeah.
the 5 solid gold questions.
Yeah.
And this is all about that sort of why did you choose that? What's the consequence of not getting it? Why would it worry you? Digging deeper, and then sort of layer upon layer upon layer, which works, I think, in a sales process as well, but also, definitely from a coaching perspective too. So
Yeah, I've based my whole life on that book, actually.
there you go.
Those questions are just genius.
Absolutely, yeah. They
Yeah.
work, don't they, as well?
I mean, they're not genius, they're simple, but they are genius.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
The genius is in its simplicity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing to do, actually, there is one in the Alan Pease questions there, which puts them into motion. So what's the consequences of not doing this?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's going to put them into a negative emotion, and it's your job as a coach then to raise up that ladder, if you like, into a positive emotion.
But do you not find sometimes that negative emotions are more motivating than positive ones? Because people run away from heat more quickly. And when there's a fire, you get out quick. When there's an ice cream truck, it's sort of, I'll take it or leave it.
Yeah, I suppose if you think about above and below the line, there's quite a lot of people in denial.
Yeah,
because they're not facing up to the consequences. They don't know what's going. They're hiding away from it.
Sure.
So it's by them verbalizing the consequences.
Yeah.
It does put them. Yeah, that will give them a motivating factor. But then you want to lead them towards something, don't you?
Yeah. But I mean, again, do you find? I mean, what is your experience of clients? Are they motivated towards goals and visions and dreams and outcomes, or are they motivated away from loss and pain and heat? What in your experience is the biggest motivator for them?
Well, I'm quite an away from motivated person.
Yeah, because I'm an away from person as well.
Yeah. But I have got, I have got clients who are actually towards. They can chase the goals, and they've got big dreams. So I think it's got to take the client as they come.
Yeah.
But the challenge with away from motivation, as we all know, is you get away from it and then you stop doing things.
That's right. Yeah. And I think it's an interesting one. I don't know what the percentage is for of people that are more goal oriented or away from oriented. I think more people. Claire, did you have some experience of this?
That too. I don't think it's the same for the person for all circumstances. And I think during the coaching, as they move maybe from a problem space to a solution space, that can actually change. And as you bring them for the first time to concretize their vision and potentially turn it into a real actionable goal, I think that can become more and more attractive. So I think that, and the more they get, since we talk about emotionally invested in a project, I think that can change. So I'm more, I think, towards something person. I also get very easily excited about something, so that's definitely the case. Shall I just mention some small tidbits towards?
Absolutely, yeah, please, absolutely,
Okay,
anything,
so, when we talk about the coach mode, I think that I believe all of us with the professionalism that comes with that are learning to manage this kind of distance, because we know that if we get into the state of emotional contagion, this truly dirty empathy where we take on the emotions of our coachee, it's not helping anybody, and we're not doing an effective job. So I think that emotion is very, very important, also to learn for those who cannot easily shut the door, on bringing themselves into it. I really do get personally so invested in in the actual coaching that I kind of forget myself anyway, right? But of course, one has to be kind of careful of this transference that can definitely happen. So there's always this kind of fly on the wall part of us that tries to take care of that. Also, Garrett, from what you said before, I personally, also because of my energy levels, I need to limit the number of coachings I do a day, because I can also not keep that level of energy up. David, you mentioned earlier that you had these clients that came in and in a very short amount of time did the work, or even Garrett, you had these people that came and just had the whole session and they told you about it and the session was over. And I still think that the work was done. It was just done without you. It was done even before they came into the session. And ultimately, even though we like to do our active part in helping them and we want to get the money and so on. However, our ultimate goal, I think, is that the client can become self-sufficient and self-responsible and accountable to themselves. So I think that that's a very good progress, because that person that came with those eight minutes, they did not figure all that out in those eight minutes. They did it the entire week, and that was just that compelling event, that deadline that it maybe needed to be done by.
I mean, I wish all my clients were like that.
Well,
it would be a somewhat different relationship, but no, that was reasonably unique. But I take your point. It's a good point you make. Absolutely.
And I think that I think when if we can do one thing for our clients, is to give them the time and space, and whatever form or fashion that takes on that particular day depends on where they're at, what they're able to, what they're facing at that day. And I think we have to be somewhat flexible, that we do not impose a fixed coaching structure when then it
That's a really good point. This sort of the use of scripts and tick box systems and coaching frameworks. It's something I've never used. Again, I've been sort of told off for that a number of times, but I've never used that. I don't get it, because I think, as you say, not every person is different, but every conversation is different with a client, because who knows what's happened to them as well. And if I just go to a tick box system, well, I might as well just fill a form in if we're not very careful.
I think that there should be an overall arching structure to the whole relationship, and maybe a coaching process. Eventually you want to get somewhere. You also have your bag of tricks or your coaching toolbox, granted, but for me, every coaching session is kind of like a blank page of paper. I go in without any preconceived like tick boxes.
Absolutely, yes. No, it's a great point you make.
Also, to get to the emotion, I think that the reason behind the reason, how Garrett said, and the meaning behind it is ultimately emotional. And they might not know it, and they might not necessarily want to tell you, or even get to tell you. That might not even make click, but it's always there. And I think that if, as a coach, we can approach it and open up those perspectives, then it's really powerful.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes the clients, they don't share their emotions or they're with us completely, which is okay. But I think providing we know that they've recognized in themselves, then that's okay as well. They're sort of self-fulfilling prophecies then to a degree. But again, sometimes I know in the conversations with clients over the years, they've told me, they tell for all of them, I'm sure they tell us things they don't tell their husband or their wife or their kids, and they don't confide in us as well. Not that it never goes anywhere. They're perfectly safe space. I'm not sure that it makes the coaching any better because we know these things, but certainly from their perspective, the ability to let go or share or vent or whatever you want to call it, for them it's hugely powerful that they can get rid of it and then they can move on, and we have to just sort of absorb it, filter it, and let it go at the end of the conversation then. But it is really interesting that there's sort of energy on the calls, that you have a very intense conversation, which happens sometimes, where you get a particular issue crop up and they'll tell you something that's really either traumatic or very powerful, and then you've literally got to let that go and jump on the next call within, I don't know, half an hour or something, and get back into coach mode, and let the emotions go. So not sharing the emotions with the clients, I think, is a good, I think that Gareth was saying, a good strategy as well.
I think that we all live our story that we tell ourselves. And
Yes.
when that client told you that part, it might be the very first time that maybe it was put into words. And now there's a chance, at least, that it becomes part of their story.
Yeah.
And opens up new perspectives.
Absolutely. It is interesting that the power of verbalization in terms of motivation and commitment, because we can all think and visualize things, but when we verbalize it, it becomes much more powerful, much more real, and we have sort of commitment to, we tend to live up to what we say. So verbalizing can be a very powerful motivator as well. Fabulous. Thank you. This is excellent. This is getting pretty deep now. This is great. We'll be here for hours now. We're here for hours. Any other thoughts, Marie? Any experience from your side on this?
It reminded me of one coaching experience, and it will lead me to a question. So this person, she came to me supposedly because she was burst of anger at work. And when we started talking and all, turns out that the burst of anger at work were not really the problem. It was more at home.
Yeah.
And then after a couple of sessions, it turns out that those reactions were caused by something she had in her childhood.
Right.
And she was jealous in her kids, basically.
Wow.
So they had everything, she didn't have that. So there was a lot of emotions going on. And part of the way she was communicating this anger was having very strong words in French when she was talking to them. And so we actually made the connection between that and her childhood and all of that. And then so she was like an overachiever and very logic and very focused and all of that, and it turns out that the problem was something very emotional and nothing related to work. And then after that, I never heard from her again.
Oh, really?
And so
wow.
yeah, and so I still believe that maybe the way of, I don't know, maybe I addressed it, or I ask her permission or something, maybe I missed something. So my question is, how do you communicate about emotions, or like gently bring people to the emotional topic when you're talking to very logic and very focused, goal-oriented people?
Great question. I'll throw it open. Gareth, Kev, any thoughts there for that?
Kev, I think.
Well, get permission to go there. Would be Would it be okay if we look at that in a different way? Would it be like this might I think that's the thing. You've got to get permission. You've got to get their permission to go into their world, to step into their world, so you can bring them out of it in a way. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think with something that on a similar theme, actually, I think because all the conversations that we have with clients, I think if I'm having a 1 hour meeting, coaching session with the client, the actual coaching bit only appears for in flashes for 30 seconds here and 30 seconds there. The rest of it's just a conversation about stuff and dogs and cats and I will say, if they come up with an issue like that, it will be that's an important issue. Would it be okay if I coach you through that and get that sort of permission to go there and ask these questions? Because then we go into coach mode proper, if you like, and then we start digging around, but maybe get permission to do it. Because I think my view and my experience is that people want to be taken there. They want to be asked the questions, but they know what questions that they don't want to be asked almost. But we need that sort of permission to go to that next level of the coaching relationship, perhaps. So I think permission would be a good start point.
I think that I do more personal coaching to now, and so I think that permission is very often already kind of part of the whole relationship, because very often they are there to just dig deep in those particular things. And emotions are carried in the body very much. So instead of asking about an emotion, ask them how they feel, where they feel it, maybe apply, do some NLP-ish type stuff, and really figure out, like, where do you feel it, and what does that mean to you,
Yeah.
and so on. Because I found that a lot of people are very inept, and that's in today's general society, not just our clients. Well, to name an emotion and to recognize it.
Yes, good point.
It's I think that people might need to do like emotional sensitivity workshops
Yes.
to really be able to name to just go into like a book on nonviolent communication and look at their positive emotions list and the negative emotions list. There's hundreds of them.
Yeah.
You know what they mean when you read them, but would you really recognize them in yourself if you were in that kind of state?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of a way that you can get deeper. And sometimes when they then go and dig and find what that physical sense in their body means to them, then they can articulate it a little bit better and can open some doors.
Yeah, and also they can sort of bring some closure. That's the right term. And I mean, I'm hesitating. We're not psychologists, but it's a similar sort of thing. And not similar. I remember this is a personal thing for me when I was living over in the US, and I came to the UK to do a workshop, an event or something. And it was towards Christmas, it was like November time or something like that. And I was talking to one of the guys at the workshop that I was delivering around, where we came from and growing up in Birmingham and all this sort of thing. And I remembered, I didn't tell him about this, but I remembered as a kid, I would be about 6 or 7, I suppose. I wanted a Scalextric, the racing set, the racing car set. Wanted that, put it on my list. That was it. I wanted that for Christmas. Didn't get it. I got a fire engine, and it was a fire engine that was bought with the sort of the green shell stamps from the local gas station. So anyway, this turned out it was great, but it wasn't the racing circuit, and it bugged me for a long time. It just bugged me. So what I did, I recognized that, and it was a ridiculous thing. It wasn't hardly as inconsequential, but it sat there. And I went into Milton Keynes, Toys R Us in Milton Keynes, and I bought a big Scalextric, a big racing set, and but they gift wrapped it, and I posted it by parcel post to the address that I used to live at as a kid in Birmingham. And I've no idea who lives there. I've no clue who lives there or lived there. No idea at all. But somebody at the address I used to live at in Birmingham got this massive, great big Scalextric thing. And I felt great. It wasn't about them. It was about me. And it was putting this, it's doing something about it that enabled me to get rid of this negative thought, whatever it was, because eventually the Scalextric, it arrived. I said to myself, which is crazy, but we're odd, we're odd characters as well. So there's all sorts of things that show up from our past that we've got to find a way to, I think, let go, move on from, and go through. But it's very challenging if she's walked away from you, then it hasn't been resolved. It's going to be there, and she's going to really hold on to it. She's not very careful with the sound of it.
Yeah, the tricky bit was that it just came out, like we made the connection right at the end of the session, and we were already like past 10-15 minutes. So I really couldn't, continue like that. So I say, hey, are you okay to, do this and that? Or if you're okay with that, we can work about it the next session. And she booked the next session, but then she canceled during the week. So I think, she was not ready to go there, and that's fine. But I just wanted to know if you guys, with all your experience, had some tricks about it.
I think it is a difficult one, because some people will want to go there. They know they've got to move past these things, and the reason they work with us as coaches is to like a subconscious thing. They want to have this drawn out and whatever it is. But other people want to have coaches as an excuse to not do something or stay put as well. I think we've got to be real careful about that, because she's compartmentalized that issue she's got, doesn't want to correct it, doesn't want to fix it, and she'll be going, well, I had some coaching, it didn't work for me, of course, blah blah blah, and it's just another defense mechanism to justify her emotional decision. It'll change over time, I suppose, but we've got to be careful how we get used, I suppose, in the coaching relationship as well.
I think you said it right there, Marie, when you said that's fine, because as coaches, I think we have to come to the realization that not everybody has the same beliefs as us, and that's okay. Not everybody is ready, and that's okay. Right? Because if we don't realize that we're not very good coaches, I think, is the I mean, I had a very similar experience very early on when I was still doing performance coaching, actually, and I was trained as an NLP coach, and I had a lady come to me, and she's a fully grown woman, but she was scared of clowns. She was still scared of clowns, which is really.
Oh, so am I though. I
Yeah.
can't be having the clowns. I tell you what.
So she really wanted to get over this. So she wanted an anchor to be able to get over this, and so I said yes. And the anchor didn't work, and which sometimes happens, but it happened. You know, it works more often than it doesn't work for me. So I kind of thought, well, there's a bit more. So I thought, well, we could do it again, or we could try something else. And when I started to ask her about it, it wasn't clowns, it was masks. And then when I asked her a bit more about it, it wasn't masks. It was that she believed everybody in her life was wearing a mask to her and not able to be their true selves.
Wow.
To her, which is like, you know,
pretty deep stuff. Wow.
Yeah, it's like, this is way beyond my comprehension. So, but I think so. It's really important that we dug deeper and deeper and deeper in order to get to that realization. And she didn't resolve it with me, but I'm pretty sure she resolved it with another, you know, probably better qualified person. But and I think, you know, that was a real lesson for me in digging deep and getting to the root cause of something. And echo everything, you know, every coaching session, every workshop, every presentation that I do starts with a question: do I have permission to be your coach for the next day, 2 hours, whenever? I always ask that question because that does two things. One, it gives me free reign to go where I want in the questioning, and two, it prepares the coachee for that happening. And I think if we were to just ask really deep questions out of the blue, you do get a barrier. So but if we've asked that question at the start, you know, they know at some point it might happen, and therefore they're more open to it. I think that really helps. You know, I always start at any seminar I start with, you know, any BNI presentation or anything like that, I always start with, so is it okay if I'm your coach for the next 2 hours or whatever, however long I'm going to be on stage or whatever?
But I think the interesting, just a genuine interesting point you made about because I can't get on with clowns either. And I hadn't thought about it any deeper than that. But I do remember, and this is not a psychology session here at all, but anyway, just out of interest, as a child, you know, 5, 6 years old, I can remember being convinced that when I would go up to bed, you know, go to bed at 7 or 8 o'clock, whatever it was, that downstairs, mum and dad or family would all sit there and go, right, he's up there, and they would literally become other people. You know, as if it was all an act, and I was just there. They were on duty when I was around. When I was asleep upstairs, they were just, you know, sat there drinking whatever. Oh, he's back, quick, up, back into dad. And I was convinced about they were just like doing role playing and that sort of thing. Like
there's a lot to unpack there, David.
There is, isn't there? I need to go and have a drink immediately, I think. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to compartmentalize it now anyway. So
I think what we talked about NLP, and one of the techniques in NLP is the phobia cure, and where you can actually help people remove the phobia as well. But one of the things you've got to find out from them when you start doing that type of thing is, what does having that phobia give them? Because they gain something at an identity level from having that phobia. And actually removing it, help them to take it away, leaves an empty hole. And sometimes you've got, you know, so you've got to. So sometimes we've got to chunk up to the identity level. What does it give you having this? What's it giving to you, or what type of what does it say about you having this problem? Because they can create the problem to get something from it.
I don't do heights either. What does that mean?
I think it's falling that you don't do. Heights is fine, but falling is not.
But clowns, tall clowns are the worst.
Yeah, exactly. A clown on stilts.
Exactly. Double whammy.
I think, you know, going back to Marie, your question, I think, and tying in the NLP a little bit, you know, one of the principles of NLP is everyone's map of the world is different, and the map is not the territory. So, and you have to, and a lot of coaches get really uptight about it, you know, that their coachee doesn't want to do what they say, or they don't believe in what they do, and they're really bad coaches. You know, I think as coaches, we have to say, that's okay. You know, not all my clients have the same political views as me. That's okay.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
It has to be, yeah. Marie, does that help? I don't know if we've gone off on a tangent a bit there, talking about clowns and heights and me and electric, but anyway.
Yeah, it's so good. Was at the beginning that I was coaching, so I did took it for me like 2 seconds, but then I replayed the session in my head, and I was like, I could see that it was nothing about me. She was just not ready to be on the subject. In fairness, she came out for something completely professional, and then we ended up with something very personal. So I understand that
you opened doors she wasn't ready to have open by the sound of it, which was good.
She closed it again.
Good coaching for you is excellent,
okay.
but some people, they never wanted to confront these things and change them, and that's their choice. You know, sometimes it can be a shame if they don't sometimes. But also, you know, if that's their roadmap and the baggage they choose to carry, that's up to them as well. It's all a choice.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your answers, guys.
It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. In fact, well, look, it's 7 o'clock here, and the barbecue is on, I'm reliably told. So I'm going to go and have something to eat. It's being cooked. So great. Well, great to see everybody. Thank you for coming on the call this afternoon. Claudia, welcome to the gang. As everybody, we're here same time, same channel next week, and have a fabulous week. Look forward to updates. I'll get this downloaded up onto the YouTube channel. I'll send you the link. Welcome to have a look at it, comment, that sort of thing. And Claudia, by the way, thank you for your kind words on YouTube as well, on one of my videos. So I had that little note come through. So I thought it was a spam coming through because it's an old video. I nearly put it into the delete box, but I read it first.
I will listen to them all, and that was the first one I saw.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, you're very kind. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. It was very kind. All right, guys. So have a great week. Let me just pause the recording. See you next week, and I'll see you real soon. Bye for now.
Bye.